Americans are the most generous people on earth. We give 2% of our income, and that really doesn't vary across income groups, and it really hasn't varied across time. And over the last 15 years, I've been trying to understand why people give. It's different, it turns out, than why people buy products. And you might think that that why question would be pretty lofty, you know, the basic core reasons for generosity. It turns out it's not. People don't give to organizations. They give to the mission they serve. And that mission is always about people. People give to people. We've been doing lots of studies. The 16 studies covered over 28,000 interviews across 16 different organizations and over 122 different nonprofits that we were measuring for those organizations. People have lots of organizations that they could give to. 1.4 million nonprofits in the U.S. And people's level of giving hasn't increased for the past 15 years. What has changed is the number of organizations. They've grown by 40% during that period. So any single nonprofit is finding it increasingly difficult to raise money. When you think of high net worth giving, you know, that's usually someone very high up in the organization who walks in and spends a half an hour or 45 minutes talking in depth, and they deliver their story in the context of their heart. So what our organization does is figure out what the heart of the donor is who gives $20 a year, $50 a year, $200 a year. Because you need to understand that donor as well as you do the person who can write a 7-figure check. Why do people give to you? That why turns out to be pretty simple too. It's they give to people that they know well and trust. There are a lot of organizations that people know well and no longer trust. There are a lot of organizations that people trust, but they don't know very well. Now, when you know both of those things at the same time, we discover that they give even more. So we call this construct of building depth of familiarity and trust belief. When we measure depth of familiarity and trust among donor organizations, something incredible happens. Every single measure increases. As people have more familiarity and more trust, they give more. Their first gift is more, their second gift is more, their third gift is more. They're less likely to lapse. They're more likely to be retained, their lifetime giving. And these numbers are not length of time you've been with the organization, but how much you know them and how much you trust them. And what we were trying to do was do one simple prediction. Could we predict whether someone intended to give? Because if you think of people who you want to acquire, you want them to be ready to give. And if you think of your current donors, you want them to give continually in the future. So that's what we were trying to predict. And these 10 measures predict. These are the 10 dimensions that summarize why people believe. Increasing belief increases giving. How do you build belief? And that turns out to be fairly simple too. You do it by portraying who you serve and who you are. But who you are is as important as who you serve. If I want to understand why I give to you, the who is personification. They all work as descriptions of people. People give to organizations that are trustworthy. And when people see the American Heart Association and the American Stroke Association actually working hand in glove, it makes you trust both more than just a single one. Organizations they think are capable. One of the reasons that St. Jude's does such a great job is people really trust their capability. They don't understand the pharmacology to give customized genetic drug testing for cancers for kids. They don't understand that. And if you tried to tell them, their attention span would wander. But they believe in St. Jude's and they believe they're extraordinarily capable. Organizations that are admired by other people. They're really thinking about how admirable that organization is to deserve their friends' trust. And when Ken Burns says that the national parks are America's best idea, very believable. That are innovative. That's increasingly, over the last 10 years that we've been measuring nonprofits, dramatically increased. Because people expect the world to be changing so fast that an organization that's standing pat, doing the things that they've always done well, are no longer doing things well. You have to change and have to innovate, and organizations which are thriving are ones that are perceived as innovative. They want to know the organization well. We live in a network society, so a lot of the walks and runs and the publicity around them really tell people that a lot of people know this organization well, and they're worth talking about, and they're worth connecting to. They want the organization to be better than an alternative organization they might give to. So they seek out information for organizations that they give to or are thinking about giving to, and that's why the web works so hard for giving organizations. They want the organization to be honorable. I'm not going to be able to watch you, so I'm going to look inside your heart and see, are you the kind of person who not only could do something for people, but will do something, and will go the extra mile. People give to people they like. You know, one of the reasons that Ronald McDonald House Charities has done so well is the way they present how they help families who have kids in the hospital, and they are one of the best liked nonprofits we've ever measured. The donor and the giver and the organization. This is a human relationship. It starts by a donor feeling that you value them and make them part of the same stewardship mission, because they're all in it together. Organizations get tons of thank you from the people they serve, but oftentimes donors never hear a word of sincere appreciation. Just telling people how you use their money is a motivating thing that often inspires another gift. They want ultimately an organization that believes in their mission. It comes down to caring. The trust that the Salvation Army person has in the person that he's bringing to, and the trust she has back to him. Belief is multidimensional. There's bad news and good news. The bad news is you can't be good in all 10 of them. The good news is you don't need to be, because people expect human beings to be strong in some areas and weak in others. And can you celebrate your strengths and minimize your weaknesses? If you're excellent on 2, that turns out to be sufficient, as long as you're not clearly deficient in anything they view as critical. And different people have different things that they find as critical. So this is our little model. And we treat these 10 as circular because they're not hierarchical. There isn't one that you say, if I nail trustworthy, that's it. Because there's some kinds of organizations that you don't explicitly trust. People give to the GOP and the Democratic Party and they don't trust them at all. But they believe that they're capable in helping the candidate that they do trust get elected. And you'd think, well, who would give to an organization they don't trust? That's an example. We've been able to measure this around a lot of important nonprofits, and we find that there's 4 distinct segments that are really worth talking about. And you can divide them by whether you believe in an organization or you don't, and whether you've ever given or you haven't. And when you do that division, you can divide the world into potential donors and believers. And among those who are not yet connecting with you on a belief level, they're either uninspired or at risk. If they've given to you and they no longer believe in you, you can be assured that they're not going to continue to give to you. We looked at 20 major nonprofits. These are organizations that have been around for 60 and 70 years in some cases. So they're well known, and people have had opportunities to give to them over their entire lifespan. 44% of people had given to the average one, and 56% hadn't. Ones that they haven't given to, more of them are uninspired and not yet likely to be giving. And among those that have given in the past, a majority of them are continuing to give at some level and continue to believe. When we look at specific examples, UNICEF is an organization that's struggling. It has 39% who are not yet inspired, despite being out there for a long time. St. Jude's really stands out because of its remarkable profile of having a large group of people who really believe in it, who've not yet given, tremendous potential, and a huge reservoir of people who've already given. United Way and Goodwill Industries are both organizations that have a lot of people at risk who have given to them in the past but haven't been connected enough to think that they're necessarily going to give in the future. What we have found as we've started to track belief for organizations is that it really transforms how they think about being accountable. Accountability is extraordinarily important to nonprofits. Everyone has a board that is saying, are you stewarding my money well? Everyone's familiar with the metrics of cost to acquire the donor, donor retention cost, and lifetime donor value, saying how much is this going to cost to acquire a new donor? Can we afford an acquisition program? How much are we spending on our existing donors? Is that really a good return on investment? Those numbers have become the cornerstone of accountability. Well, with belief, you transform those. What's the cost to build belief among non-donors? Is a way to take the concept of cost to acquire a donor and give it actionability. What are the costs to maintain and build belief among donors? Well, that's a way to think about how much you're spending among your current donor pool, because it's predictive of what will grow in the future. And lifetime donor value, you really start to look at that different if you think about what is the return I get on belief building within the organization. Oftentimes in large nonprofits, the marketing department has a set of goals and the development people have a set of goals, and they're not always on the same page because the goals appear to be different. Well, belief transforms that. We expect about a third of people, it turns out, to be able to be migrating from uninspired to potential donors. And you expect 70% of your current donors to have strong belief. If you fall below 70%, that's a problem. Marketing and development come together to inspire and facilitate the first gift. UNICEF turns out to be about average on all of those. And St. Jude's, they're doing better than average in their marketing practice, they're doing better than average on their percent belief of all donors. So suddenly these metrics give you a way to equitably compare organizations which are very different organizational paths. Giving is a moving experience. And behind all of this knowledge is that as we understand why people believe, it can inspire everything we do as an organization and everything we do to touch people so that they will care about our organization and give plentiful out of their capacity to do so.